Welcome to the 14th episode of the Tiny Nimble Podcast, a show all about mobile gaming hosted by me, Tiny Little Games, and my fellow YouTuber, the son of Odin himself, Nimble Thor. In today's episode, we will discuss some updates within the mobile gaming world, as well as a bit of interesting news about revenue growth within the industry. Nimble Thor will also be paying respects to his favorite game. We will make sure to take a moment of silence. And then of course we'll touch on the usual, things like upcoming games, recent releases, and more. So we hope you'll be enjoying this podcast and leave a like, subscribe, or somehow rate this podcast if you're listening or watching on a platform where that's possible. That way we can continue reaching more mobile gamers. Now before we start this podcast, we want to talk about some games we recommend you check out. It's our righteous recommendation for the month. Nimble Thor, tell us what to play.
Okay, listen guys, Dark Zone. That's it. Over and out. Okay.
Said and done.
Dark Zone. Okay. Said and done. There's nothing more to say. Dark Zone is it's this sci-fi themed RPG game with multiplayer elements, which I always like when a game has that. Like this one has a chat system, it has a guild system, and even co-op battles, which is really cool. And I'm starting to see that more and more, by the way. Maybe that's something we can talk about later, but I'm starting to see co-op, real-time co-op more and more in mobile games, which I'm really liking. The combat system in this game is real-time, but it is idle though. But it's really what's happening when you're not fighting that is interesting. That's where we upgrade our loot, we craft new items, interact with other players, obviously. And I just really enjoyed the gameplay. So it's an easy recommendation from my end. You do have to be okay with the idle combat, though, in order for it to be fun for you. But the community is awesome. The developer seems really nice. It's an indie game, so it's actively being developed. Lots of updates based on community input and stuff like that. And also the monetization is just purely based off of cosmetics. It, by the way, I didn't mention this, it's not a fancy 3D game. It's not a text-based game either, but it's something in between. Like it has relatively simple graphics, so it's really the gameplay that you're there for,
Okay, how does the co-op work though? So you have like other players with you and their characters, or?
Right, so the way so co-op is interesting because it's real time, right? So you have to actually have another friend who is online in-game right now, and you can go on these almost like dungeon raids where you have to defeat these strong bosses together. But again, combat is idle. So what this means is that you just basically go, like you pick a friend you want to go with, and that other friend has to accept the invite. And then both characters are teleported into this boss fight. And the characters fight automatically, and then you can tap on weak spots on the monsters, on the bosses you're fighting against to deal more damage. Like both of you guys can do that.
Okay.
And there are also, some special ability bar that fills up, and then you can manually activate that. So there are some active elements to the combat system. But that's how the co-op works, right? So you got to be online at the same time. It is real-time co-op, which is why that's one of the things I'm really loving about this game. But the normal combat system, when you're just fighting on your own, you don't actually fight fully on your own because before you head into any like campaign mission, what you have to do is you have to select another player's character to take with you, right? So you only have one character. This is not a character collection game, like it's not a hero collector gacha game. You have one hero that you upgrade, through a stats system, but you have to take another person with you. Now, you don't have to be friends. The game will just show you a list of other players' characters, and you pick one of them, and they go with you into battle. And because it's idle, this works very well, right? So that character basically just fights with you automatically. But the cool thing is, when that person whose character I used, without that person even knowing it, when that character or that person then logs onto the game, they'll see that, hey, you have helped defeat these monsters in battle, so here are your rewards. Here's your part of the loot from those battles.
I like
so it's really
that.
Cool. Like every time you log in, there's a chance that someone else has used your character without you even knowing it to fight in the game. And I don't know, it's a smart way to do some sort of like idle progression system. And I guess that's why I really like it. It's done in a smart way. It doesn't feel like a slap-on or like add-on at the end. It's integrated into the core gameplay experience, which very positively surprised me. And again, coming from I think just one developer, or at least a small indie team. As is often the case, it feels like there's so many
nowadays.
great games coming out from indie teams.
All right, I guess I'm going to give my righteous recommendation now, and it is Astrocraft. Astrocraft is a PvP battle arena developed by NetEase. Now, I know what you're thinking. With NetEase, you're either going to get a game that is super fun, high quality, well done, or you might get the complete opposite. They're kind of in the middle there. This one, I feel like, falls kind of in the middle, where it's like, it's basically a craft your own death machine and defeat other players who crafted their own death machines. So, yeah, you start with this little box, this block, and then you just tap tack on a bunch of Legos to it. You put some legs on it. You put a cannon on top of it, and then you just go out and see if you can just destroy other robots. The best thing I like about it is the physics is really awesome. So like if you can actually pinpoint, let's say, an enemy's leg, and if you shoot off the leg, now they're kind of scrambling around the map trying to like get away from you, and then you can take them down. You can repair yourself real time. There's a bunch of awesome game modes within Astrocraft as well. I mean, there's my favorite is it's called the Storm mode, but it's like a survival mode to where you get popped on a map and all you have is just legs and a base, and you have to actually run around and find different weapons or different stuff to add to your machine.
Yes.
And then in real time build your tank up, and other people are doing it at the same time. I mean, it kind of feels Battle Royale-ish in a way like that, but different. And then you just go out, and then at the end, it's just you have this souped up robot that you guys are just attacking each other. It's really, I just enjoyed it so much, and I've gotten away from PvP like arena battlers. I didn't enjoy them as much, but this kind of like pulled me back in. And there's a bunch of different mini games. There's like a Rocket League mini game, like a basketball mini game where you play as like robot dinosaurs with the basketball hoop, and it's so interesting, and it kind of takes a genre we're all used to, right? So it takes like the PvP arena type battler genre we're all used to and adds in a little bit of creativity, because you're the one creating these robot death machines to take out onto this map and destroy others. So it kind of adds that element to it. And then you can spend literally a half hour building your robot, because before you can actually on the side just go into a build mode where you build your ultimate robot, save that robot, so that way when you go back later on and want to play a map or a different mode, you can take that robot you built. It's just really enjoyable, that whole dynamic between the two. I think if anybody's interested in a unique PvP battler, something that kind of flexes your brain muscles but also gives you some action blasting fun, Astrocraft is the game for you.
I agree, by the way. I also played this game, and I included it in one of my videos, and I had a blast with it as well. Everything you said, I agree with, and it's also just really cool how it just surprised me. Like I went into it expecting it to be just another mech shooter, like a mech fighting shooting game, something like that, right?
Yep.
With a Battle Royale mode, probably, as always, right? I didn't expect a lot, but it kind of blew me away as well for just being so unique. Now, I know you didn't talk too much about the monetization, but there isn't really a whole lot to be said about it either. But for those who are interested, maybe it's worth mentioning just that, yes, I mean, you can definitely pay to get some better parts and get them faster than free players. But the thing about this game, as you also kind of touched on, is that it feels like a casual game. Like, it's not a game you're gonna go super hardcore on. So it doesn't matter that much. I mean, if you meet another player that has spent money on the game, it's not the same as losing in a round of Fortnite or Call of Duty Mobile, where you can get genuinely frustrated with that. It's more of like, yeah, okay, but maybe I can still build a better mech than he can or she can, right? It's not all about just having the best gear. So, yeah. And as you said, freaking Rocket League or basketball with dinosaur mechs. I mean,
you can't really top that.
Right. Absolutely agree.
And you brought up a good point.
You can't really top that, you know?
Yeah, you brought up a good point about the monetization aspect too, because like there was a few matches where I can tell like, okay, this guy has a whole like gold suit of armor, let's say, and I'm like, okay, he probably spent some money. But I mean, there is ways to kind of circumvent that. I mean, if you play smart and you're hiding behind like, you know, a boulder or a wall, you can kind of pinpoint his legs and take out his legs maybe. I mean, you might have a chance. So it doesn't feel so aggressive when it comes to like those people who might have those, you know, pay to win type items, or let's say. So I mean, like, and you hit the nail on the head there. Like, it's not that same sort of frustration with it when you're playing against somebody in other games and you're just like, okay, guy, you you spent a gajillion dollars to defeat me and I'm frustrated now. It doesn't have that sense to it.
No, thankfully.
Yeah, thankfully, yeah. All right, moving on. We're going to talk about some recent releases, and I strained really hard to find some good recent releases for you guys. And although there has been some games that have released recently, there's nothing like huge. Most of the games that we're waiting for have not released yet. You know, we're waiting for that Diablo Immortal to come out. We're waiting for that Apex Legends to drop on mobile. So, but with that said, we're going to go over two games that I think some people might be interested. First and foremost, it's Slay the Spire. Now, I know a lot of you might have already played Slay the Spire. That game has been out for a while now on almost every other platform. It just finally released on Android, I think this month. It is a premium game coming in at $9.99 USD. And basically, Slay the Spire is like a roguelike deck builder. So, you know, you take your character out, you have a deck of cards that each have, you know, attacks, defenses, special powers. You throw them out, you fight enemies, And from what I've seen of it, the footage, I actually want to get this game. It looks really fun, and it does look addicting, and I've heard great stuff about it. I will give people a heads up. If you're looking to buy it on Android, keep in mind there is some launch glitches in there. Sometimes I've read that, you know, when you're reading the cards, like what it says, what attacks it says, it kind of cuts off the bottom. And from what I've read, also the developers are aware of that, and they're actually going to fix that with the patch. So if anybody's wondering, they all, you know, I got the game and there's some issues with it, just so you know, it's going to be ironed out. But that's a super popular game that is released recently, so you guys might be interested in it. Another one is called Battlepalooza. Now, I know you guys are excited for Battlepalooza because it's yet another Battle Royale game. How can you not be excited about it?
Yay!
Yeah, everyone get excited. It's basically, I mean, it tries to do something different. I can tell from the screenshots and from the footage. It's a top-down Battle Royale type game. Think of something like, what was that game, Zuba, where it's top-down. Right. And you throw you on a map and you kind of attack. Has a cartoony graphics art style to it. I guess one of the high points about it, which I've read, is that it's supposed to take place in real life city locations. I'm guessing, not sure, maybe like New York City or something like that, like those big cities. But if someone's interested in yet another Battle Royale, you might be interested in checking out Battlepalooza.
Yeah, and also, I mean, it has to be said that, yes, I mean, we're joking about it here, right? Like, it's another Battle Royale game. But of course, some of the older games, yeah, but I mean, to be fair, some of the older games also, like, they slowly drop in user counts, like user numbers, like there are less and less players in those games. So even though it's just more of the same, okay, I haven't played the games, I can't say it's completely more of the same, but even if it was more of the same and nothing new, there's still a case to be made for like new types of these games being developed and released and played, simply because it brings people back together again. Like people who might have played, you know, what was that game you mentioned? Zuba, right? Like played Zuba 1 or 2 years ago, but you know, I would guess that their player base is down quite a bit. So maybe Battlepalooza is the game that can draw us all back in together again. I like the other games in this subgenre of Battle Royale games, by the way, like this top-down cartoony art style game genre. So maybe I'll actually have to go check it out. Battlepalooza. Interesting.
And then now we're going to talk about something both Nimble Thor and I are super excited for, and that's the upcoming release of Warhammer Odyssey. We've talked about it in our last podcast. Warhammer Odyssey is basically an MMORPG set in the Warhammer universe that's going to be releasing soon on mobile, and we're just going to talk about why we're excited about it. First and foremost, and I think you can agree to this, no auto mechanics.
That's such great news.
Yeah. And the thing with Warhammer Odyssey is the developers made a point about there not being any type of auto mechanics. It's going to be your traditional MMORPG on mobile. I've seen some footage of it. I don't know if you've seen footage of it, and it does look like it does have that kind of like, hey, you're in control of, you know, of what's going on, of the battles, of going to quests, you know, no auto questing, auto battling, nothing like that. Yeah. And I'm a big fan of the Warhammer universe. I'm not sure, Nimble Thor, are you familiar with Warhammer?
I know Warhammer, yeah, but I mean, I haven't played too many of the other games. They released a Warhammer, like 4-player co-op team-based game on PC a while ago, like Warhammer End Times, Vermintide.
Oh,
like
Vermintide,
Warhammer
yeah,
End Times,
I played
Vermintide,
that.
Yeah, something like that. That was great. I really enjoyed that one. So, but obviously these games, that's the thing about the Warhammer franchise, is that it's being used by so many different developers.
Yeah.
Like the developers getting the licenses. So you can't just look at one of the games and say, hey, this game was great, so this new one is probably be great as well, because the developers are they're vastly different from each other. It's a completely different team that has made this mobile version from the team that made the PC co-op game, from the team that made, you know, whatever other Warhammer game we have. You know, there are also, you know, a couple of Warhammer games already on mobile. I think they're more like mech. That's the Warhammer 40K, right? Like the futuristic stuff.
Mech one. There's a
couple of those on mobile
deck builder
already.
one, I think.
Right. Yeah. No, but I'm interested in Warhammer Odyssey as well, and I was very excited when we recorded the last episode of this podcast. But since then, I've read some people saying that, you know, the sorry, the idea is interesting.
You're gonna dash my hopes.
The combat is just. Yeah, the combat is just not fun. I mean, that's what people have been telling me. It's just very slow, like slow-paced, right? Like combat is very slow-paced, and it kind of, I guess, breaks the fun or destroys the fun for those people who wrote those messages over on iOS gaming and or was it? Maybe it was the Android gaming subreddit. but over on Reddit for sure. So that got me kind of frustrated and disappointed a bit already. So my hype level on a scale from 1 to over 9,000 is just about, I'd say it's about 4,000 now, if it goes up to over 9,000. So it's not, I mean, before it was close to being over, it was like close to 9,000, but I think it's down to 4,000 now. But I'm still definitely going to play it though. And I don't want to ruin your excitement, although I'm realizing that I might have done that. Here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. I think those people, I cannot know this for sure, but I think those people who made those comments have just gotten used to more fast-paced MMORPGs, or like modern MMORPGs.
I was just going to say
Odyssey,
that, yeah.
It's just more old school, right? Like how some of the early PC MMORPGs were, I think, and it was more slow-paced back then. So, I mean, maybe they're just maybe it's just a game for a specific audience.
It could be. I mean, it could be because, I mean, when you started talking about how the complaints were the slow-paced combat, that's the first thing I thought of, too, was, back in the day, if you want to even go back to, RuneScape, let's say. I mean, the combat wasn't super fast as well. And like you said, as we've been progressing, we've been getting to more of this fast-paced, get things done combat. Now, and I can understand, like you said, even I feel a little sort of disappointment that like that is a complaint. But it's also something that I'm sure can be tweaked if there's enough, complaints about it or whatnot, that maybe somehow they can speed it up or do something along those lines after a launch, or maybe after the beta or something along those lines. So hopefully we'll see something in that department. I'm still excited. I wouldn't say I'm over 9,000, but I'm still excited just because I really do like the Warhammer aesthetic, not just the art style, but the character designs, the way they make their big bulky space marines, and the way they make their orcs and stuff like that. That stuff excites me. And plus I am looking forward to an MMORPG on mobile that kind of doesn't fit into the mold, that doesn't fit into the things we usually get. I recently did a video talking about
just something different.
MMORPGs on mobile and how they've just gotten kind of stale. I've gotten, now whether or not I've grown or I've changed or I'm just not a big fan of them as I used to be, but they definitely don't have that same impact they used to have. And I guess I'm holding on to dear hope that Warhammer Odyssey would just bring me back to that, like, I'm going to play this game all night and ignore my wife. But we'll see about that. We'll see how far that goes.
Oh, the good days, huh?
The good old days of ignoring your significant other to play MMORPG.
Let's be real. You didn't have a wife back then.
Yeah.
Back when you played MMORPGs.
Or a girlfriend.
Or a girlfriend. So, yeah. Okay. No, but I'm still looking forward to playing Warhammer Odyssey as well. And I think, yes, you mentioned that maybe it's something they'll be able to tweak, if it is really too slow-paced. Yes, I'm sure they would be able to, but the question is if they have the fund to do that. Do they have enough money? I mean, if the game doesn't end up earning enough money within the first 3 months, they may not have time to fix that stuff. Because I have worked on an MMORPG project before, and money is tight. Like, no matter what, even the most well-funded MMORPGs have pretty tight budgets. So it's kind of an all or nothing type of game. Like, you have to succeed, and it has to do well pretty quickly most of the time. And I know that I haven't looked into this. I haven't looked into how much money the Warhammer Odyssey developers have raised, but I know it's not the biggest of teams. So I am concerned that if they make a major mistake, they won't have the fund to fix it. I mean, we're not talking Activision Blizzard here or EA. Like,
true.
They don't have the money to do that.
Yeah.
So that is my concern, that it's not good enough, and maybe it was rushed to the market. Now, I'm making assumptions here, but like, it might have been a bit rushed, maybe, and maybe that's why we're getting an experience that doesn't feel amazing, or some people are saying that the experience doesn't feel amazing, but hopefully that's not the case. That's the naysayer inside of me thinking these things. And maybe, by the way, if I can transition here, maybe it's because I'm already a sad boy here sitting here in frozen Denmark. Like, I'll tell you, I was out walking just a few hours ago. It's so cold here in Denmark now. It feels like it gives true meaning to what is it you say? Like, until all hell freezes over. I think hell has frozen over if Denmark is hell. It's so freezing cold here now. So, but the reason why I'm a sad boy is that my beloved Kickflight is closing down. The game I just picked as my favorite game in the last episode, my favorite game of 2020, is now closing down, very close to its 1-year birthday of since it released. The developers are turning off the servers on March 22nd, 2021. So, Tiny, there's still time for you and me to go in and play a few matches
the slow
in there.
music, get the bagpipes going.
I want to hear Amazing Grace now.
Well, it sucks because in the pre-show you had mentioned this, and it didn't quite hit me at first what you were talking about until I looked and you said Kick Flight, and I'm like, whoa, that was your favorite game of last year. And just last podcast, you were talking about how amazing it was, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna try this now. You got me interested, and then you tell me it's closing, and I'm like, oh man, I better hurry up and download this game before they shut it down.
Yeah, 2021 had their eyes on me, right? It had its eye on me, and it was just like, hey, Nimble Thor, I'm gonna rip your heart out. I'm gonna destroy you this year.
I'm going to destroy you in this cold weather. Now freeze over.
Yeah, exactly. And we're gonna take your favorite game away. All kidding aside, I haven't actually played Kick Flight too much, so I have contributed myself to this problem, and I'm kind of sad about that. But it just comes down to me playing so many new games to be able to talk about them, just like you do on YouTube. You have to play a lot of new games to find the best ones.
Yeah,
and so I haven't had much chances to get back to it. But Kick Flight was one of those maybe 3 or 4 games that I knew I would get back to, PvP games that I knew I would get back to if I had the time. Kick Flight would be one. Clash Royale would be one that I just knew I would love to get back to that at some point in terms of PvP games. There are many more casual and offline playable games that I do get back to from time to time, but Kick Flight was one of the PvP ones, Supercell's Clash Royale was one of the other ones, and then Call of Duty Mobile. Those were sort of my 3 PvP-oriented games that I really enjoyed, and now one is being taken away. So
what do you think contributed to it? I don't know if you read anything about it, but do you think there was an issue with, monetization, player base? What in your opinion, what do you think?
Player base.
It has to be, right?
Yeah, just player base.
Yeah.
So in Japan, it was apparently somewhat popular, very popular for some time. But the international version never really got off the ground. Don't know why, maybe it was lacking a proper marketing effort internationally, or maybe there's something wrong with the game, but that could have been tweaked if they had enough players and enough numbers, enough data to make tweaks based on. If they saw that players didn't like this specific character or this specific thing about this game mode or whatever, then they could change that, right? As long as they had enough players. Yeah. So I think it comes down to poor promotion, marketing of the game internationally, and what that led to was that people very quickly started playing against bots, because when there aren't enough players online, you play against bots instead, and so that at some point just gets frustrating as well. Then some people try to connect to the Japanese servers through a VPN and through downloading the Japanese version, even though international players trying to do that. But of course, at that point, only the most hardcore players are going to do that, right? I mean, go through the hassles of downloading a VPN, figuring out how to, even playing in Japanese, right? Not English. So
I think they should have just bought the rights and changed the name and the characters and just called it Dragon Ball Z Flight Kick Ultimate. Yes. Because, it's basically Dragon Ball.
They should have. And
a lot more players would have played it.
It might sound weird that, and it might sound weird that I care so much about this, but it's just, it was one of those, and I know not everyone agrees, by the way. I included this game in my end of the year video where I summarized the best games of 2020. I included Kick Flight, and I put it as an S tier game, and I know that some people didn't agree with me on that because the controls were too difficult, so that obviously contributed to it not seeing enough player or the proper player numbers either. Or that contributed as well, that it didn't have, it was too difficult to control, was what some people said. And also some were saying that maybe it should have been played in landscape mode, whereas it was a portrait mode game. So I know not everyone agrees, but I played the game, and just the first time player experience when I got in there, I was just blown away. And that's, I think it's funny, I'm living through playing a game and now the game closing down. I'm living through this, and I know that I'll look back in 10 years and think, 10 years ago, Kick Flight really, they pushed what was possible on mobile, in terms of unique gameplay experiences. Mm-hmm. Oh, man.
Such a shame.
And I'm not even getting, and they're not even paying me. I could promote the heck out of this game.
So we have to check back in 10 years, everybody, to see if Nimble Thor is still thinking about Kick Flight.
Yeah. I don't think this one... Yeah, I don't think I'll forget this one. I don't think I will. Okay. But on the bright side, though...
There's a bright side. The sun is rising, guys.
Yeah, there's a bright side.
The snow is melting.
Even here in Denmark, in cold Denmark, because so this is the news, we might be getting an actual World of Warcraft mobile version at some point. There's a big but here, though. Like, maybe we will be getting a World of Warcraft mobile version because here's the thing: the CEO of Activision Blizzard, obviously the developers of World of Warcraft, said on an investor call recently that they have, and I quote, made multiple mobile free-to-play Warcraft experiences, and that those games are now in advanced development stages. So it means they're soon ready to start alpha testing them. That is interesting, don't you think? I think it's so interesting. It would be so cool. I mean, talking about MMORPGs, how about getting a World of Warcraft on mobile?
I think that would be pretty good, actually, if they do it correctly, or even if it's like, even if they just convert, kind of like how they did old school RuneScape, like convert the old World of Warcraft, the traditional classic, as they call it, to mobile, I think that would be very successful. And the interesting part about this quote that I like as well is multiple free-to-play Warcraft experiences. So if we think just beyond World of Warcraft, which is, that's one huge deal, I mean, we could be potentially getting like an RTS type Warcraft game like the old school Warcrafts used to be, which I'm a big fan of those, and I played 1, 2, and 3, all of those games. So I mean, if we get something like that too, that gets me super excited as well.
I didn't even think about that. But I know many people over on Reddit, on the Android gaming and iOS gaming subreddits, they very frequently, it's a question that often comes up, is like, what is a good RTS on mobile? And the answer is, there's almost none.
I thought you were going to say Lord of the Rings Beyond the Wall, or not Lord of the Rings, what is it? No. Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones Beyond the Wall is the best RTS.
No, but that's the answer typically, is like you have to mention a game. I mean, obviously that isn't an RTS, but often the answer is that you have to mention some RTS that isn't really great. I mean, either in terms of monetization or gameplay. But you're completely right. Getting Warcraft, like a Warcraft 3 experience on mobile, that would be amazing.
Yeah, Warcraft 3 was great, but then I also see, here's the pessimist in me as well. We both have our pessimistic views. I worry that if they do an RTS, it's going to be just like those RTSs we were talking about, where, you know, the portrait mode RTS, and it shows the map, and then you go and send the troops, and then you go and collect or like that same traditional mobile RTS that we've all grown accustomed to, that aren't very successful, and if they are successful, it's because of the IP. It's because of, oh, it's a Final Fantasy, or oh, it's a Game of Thrones one.
Right.
I just hope it doesn't fall into that mold. And of course, it's going to have a monetization. It's probably going to have some mobile game mechanics we might not be super happy about, but I do hope that they try to at least stay as close as possible to that, you know, old school RTS feel, that Warcraft that was, you know, that got so many people invested in Warcraft. And if we want to circle back to World of Warcraft, I hope that they also do that one, you know, with some justice as well. Maybe not have so much auto mechanics. Like, I always talk about auto mechanics or whatnot. I am okay with, you know, maybe clicking a button that has my character walk to the quest. That, you know, and that type of auto I'm okay with, you know. But when it comes to like battling, I like to be in control of the battles and not even have the option to auto. I feel like just let me battle it out. Because with MMOs or with MMORPGs, they kind of are, some of them are kind of auto battling anyway. You just, you know, you make sure you push your special, they do it. You make sure you click that hero or that character, they fight. So, I mean, in that sense, it's okay. But I just hope Blizzard can, like, you know, produce something really good for us.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm afraid of the monetization as well, but I do think though that they'll get some insight into what players think about their monetization ideas now with the release of Diablo Immortal. True. And you know, I know that Diablo Immortal is gonna go the battle pass route, like they're gonna have a monthly or seasonal battle pass type of deal, because they mentioned that. I read that in some article, and then they're probably going to have other in-app purchases as well that allow you to pay to progress faster. But I hope that they'll learn something good.
Yeah.
I hope that us gamers will collectively shame Blizzard if they go the wrong route in terms of like adding too much pay to win, and hopefully that can help inform their future games. But let's not fool ourselves. As you said, Activision Blizzard, you know, it's a massive company and they want to make money.
Yeah.
They want to make money real bad, you know. Yeah, but it's interesting, I think, that they're going to take the Warcraft franchise to mobile. They care a lot about the Warcraft franchise, by the way. Like, it's really important. It's an important franchise. So they don't want to mess it up. And actually now, I'm starting to think maybe that means that we won't see these games for another 4 or 5 years, just like Diablo Immortal.
Yeah, Diablo Immortal is coming out this year, everybody. Okay,
it is coming
Just
out.
hold on to your horses.
This year it is actually coming out. Yeah,
we were pretty sure it's coming out this year. At least I think.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, something. They can always blame Corona, I guess. If all else fails.
Yes, they can. You're right. Yeah. Even though the game was finished before the pandemic and they've been working on it since, but yes, they can.
Hey. Okay, now we have a couple of industry updates as well. One of them being about Google Stadia, and it's not good news because Google Stadia, or Google rather, I guess, closed down its first-party development studio. So this was a game development studio they had launched that was supposed to work on Google-made games for Stadia.
Like first-party Stadia games, yeah.
First-party Stadia games, just like you see it on like Sony owns a couple of studios and they make first-party PlayStation games. And the same with Microsoft and Xbox. But Google is closing down, like shutting down this company completely before it barely got started, right? I don't know if we saw them release even one game. Game development takes a long time, so it's surprising to see them close it down only like 1 or 1.5 or maybe 2 years after it launched. But that's what happened. And of course that, created a lot of bad press about Google Stadia, even though Google Stadia is not closing down, but it's just the first-party development studio that's closing down. What it means for the future of Stadia is a bit unclear. I mean, the people who use Stadia will probably continue to be able to use Stadia, I think. And I also think there might be a future where Google just turns this into more of a software as a service type of deal, like where they can deliver the tech, the backbone, the infrastructure for delivering games, like from a server somewhere, and then just streaming it to your computer, to your phone, but not necessarily being branded as Stadia. So like if let's say that Square Enix wanted to make a Final Fantasy game and they wanted to stream it, maybe they could use Google's Stadia backend system and technology for making that possible, but you as a user, you wouldn't really know that it's Stadia. I think maybe, I'm just guessing here, but maybe that's where Google want to take this. And that's also where Google is strong, right? Like with their infrastructure and with making these business to business type of deals.
They could take their product and, like you said, they can sell it, or they can sell the use of it to these other companies to make use of it.
Think of it like Android. Like Android.
Yeah, kind of like what Android does. Pay respects, I'm pressing F for Google Stadia, but yes, I do think this is the inevitable beginning of the end for it, because closing down the development studio basically says, okay, we're not focusing on Google Stadia, games, creating our own games.
In the same way.
Yeah. So, of course, like you said, they're still supporting the other games. The product still exists. But it does set a precedent, or like you said, it does kind of set because if just the average person just reads like just the headline, they can potentially think, oh, well, Google Stadia is gone, like they might not be looking deep into it and saying, oh, it's just a development studio within, the company, that it won't be making first party games or whatnot. But I do agree with you. I do think that as the years pass, they're going to be going away from the whole Stadia, not storefront, but the idea of it's a dedicated service or it's dedicated for this. And I do see them kind of pushing it out to another thing. And you know what? If Google Stadia would have launched and been a huge success and everybody would have been playing it and I don't think this would have happened. I'm pretty sure they would have continued to support it like that. But because it didn't have that, I just feel like it's it's unfortunate because the technology is great if you have the internet service to provide that technology, which here I don't.
Yeah.
It's a great technology for people who don't have high-end gaming PCs or just want to play on their phone. I still think there's something there. I just don't think it's enough.
No, but I wonder if there's something to be said about, like, if they could have every Chromecast come with Stadia on it already, and they could have make deals with smart TV providers like Samsung producers. Sorry,
I see where you're going.
Samsung, LG, Sony, and so on. Have it on their smart TVs as a pre-installed application on like an app on the smart TVs. Then they essentially become a storefront that is, on many, many different screens already, like pre-installed.
Yeah.
And so if some people do want to dive in, they can do that. But it would probably be targeting less of the hardcore gaming crowd then, and just more of like your average consumer, not just the most hardcore gamers. Because hey, it's there, it's on my TV already. I don't own an Xbox or a PlayStation or a Nintendo Switch. I don't own a gaming console. But I have my smart TV, and I can play all the AAA games, or like all the best, the highest quality AAA games. There's no technology holding me back here. I can play that by streaming it from Stadia. That could be interesting, I think. Now, I don't know if that's something that's even realistic for Google to do. I don't know if that's the route they want to take. I just think that would be an interesting way for them to approach the next stage of Stadia.
Yeah, it would be like
so it doesn't die out.
Yeah, it would be like you're buying your TV and your console in one. Like they can kind of market it like,
exactly.
You're buying it all in one, and then the price doesn't seem as much when you're buying a new TV and let's say a console. Let's say you're a family, and you buy it and then now your kids have access to some of these games you don't have to buy a dedicated console for. So I definitely see where you're going with that. And I think you should get in touch with Google's marketing team on that one. You might be onto something, Nimble.
Maybe. Yeah, I'll send an invoice to them and see what happens.
Send the invoice.
Now, before here's something interesting. But before we reveal the answer to this next topic, or to this question, I want you to give you guys a few seconds to think about this first. Which game genre do you think grew the fastest last year in terms of revenue earned? So from 2019 to 2020, which genre of mobile games grew the fastest in terms of money being spent in the game?
Oh man, that's a tough one.
Have you done your thinking?
Oh man,
yeah, have you done your thinking?
Is it horror games? Maybe it's a horror game.
No, it's not. It's not horror games. Here's the answer. It surprised me, and you as well, Tiny. We talked about this in the pre-show, but it was actually the simulation genre.
What? Mind blown. But seriously, mind blown.
Thanks for acting surprised.
Yeah, like I didn't know. For
real, who would have thought that, right? Like, it grew 61% growth. So like if they did $1 billion in 19, it would be 1.5 or 1.6 rather $billion now. That's a huge amount of extra money there's lots of extra money being spent on those games. Whereas just to put this into context, shooters only saw 42% growth, RPGs 40.8%, and then if you look at something like strategy games, they only saw a 23% growth. So of course, everything grew. The games industry and the mobile games industry continues to grow constantly. Every genre, I think, grows. But 61% growth in the simulation genre. And so I read that news, and then I sat down and thought, have I played any simulation games this year? I don't know. Can you think of any simulation games you've played this year?
Yeah, when I hear the word simulation games, I'm like, okay, it has to be a dating sim, right? Or even a Sims type game, one of those games where you simulate a life or an additional life. But like you said, you looked into it and what you found was surprising. Take it away.
Yes. Okay. So we looked into it in the pre-show, and idle games fall into this category.
Do you play AFK?
AFK? AFK Arena? See, exactly. No, that's a good example. I don't know if AFK Arena actually, I didn't look up that one specifically, but many idle games fall into this simulation category.
Super interesting.
So developers for some reason choose to call them simulation games, these idle games. Of course, you've also got your Fallout shelters and other more games that you would typically think of as simulation games.
Yeah, that makes
sense. Management games. Yeah, but I think idle games is what really helped it blow up, I guess. And we've just seen so many of them, right? And even just AFK elements or idle elements making it into other games as well.
Yeah.
It's just been happening across the board between 2019 and 2020. So maybe it isn't too surprising. Just looked it up, by the way. AFK Arena is marked as a role-playing game. So AFK Arena specifically doesn't count.
Doesn't count.
No,
well, but on that note, though, it's interesting because there is kind of this cross-genre, right? These genres kind of seem to cross each other over. So you have a game labeled as a simulation game, but there's a lot of RPG elements, or a simulation game, there's some puzzle elements, or there might even be some strategy, but yet it might be listed as simulation. So I'm curious too to see if some of these genres are crossing over to each other, and it's kind of pushing the simulation aspect forward. And that's kind of why we see so much growth in that aspect. That's kind of what I was thinking too, because even though AFK is labeled as RPG, maybe it's the idle mechanic that kind of that idle type genre fits into the simulation, and that's what's pushing it so forward. So it's very interesting that it's simulation games that have made a 61% jump.
Who'd have thought? And it might also be, I don't know if this is true at all, purely guesswork here on my end, but it might also be that the simulation genre wasn't too populated before. So if you make a game and you release it and you choose, as a developer, you choose that, yeah, this is a simulation game, you pick that category when you upload it to the app stores, then maybe your game has a higher chance of showing up on the charts within the simulation category. So maybe there's some sort of like search engine optimization or marketing thinking going into that. Could also be the case, but it's probably a mix of all of it, I would guess. But yeah, 61% growth, so someone is downloading, and more importantly, I guess, spending money on these simulation games, or idle games. So there was another piece of interesting news that sort of caught our eyes and we wanted to talk a bit about, which is that Brawl Stars has now become Supercell's game number 4, their 4th game to earn over $1 billion in revenue. 4 games, $1 billion each.
Supercell is crazy. On fire right now.
They are still on fire. Maybe that's the way to put it, right?
Yeah. We can't put the fire out. Time. You're right. You're right.
No, exactly. And even I got into, I didn't get into Brawl Stars again, but I got into Clash Royale last week, and I actually ended up buying my very first Battle Pass ever in any video game. Haven't bought it before. This was the first time experience. And I've been enjoying it so much. The Battle Pass is a great way to get lots of extra rewards, and I'm not trying to sell it to any of you guys here, but Clash Royale, I think it's just such a well-made game, and I do see, now that I've tried to buy the Battle Pass, I do see why people buy it, and I do see why Supercell is making so much money. I don't think I'll ever be done with that game. I'm not good at Clash Royale, by the way. I'm not amazing at the game. I just have fun as a casual player of it. I just go in there and I play the party modes mostly. I don't want to play the competitive modes where you have to get more trophies. I'm just more to the casual side. I just think it's a well-crafted game. And maybe that's it. Maybe Supercell just makes great games, like them or hate them, but maybe they're just high-quality games, and maybe they're just almost in their own league. Maybe. It's hard for me to say because I haven't played every one of their games, and not all of the games are, to my liking or my preferred gameplay or game genres.
It's super interesting about Supercell because it's almost like they have the foresight to just know what game is going to be popular or what mechanic is going to keep people engaged for long periods of time, because their success really falls on that. When you had Clash of Clans, that game was popular for at least 5+ years. You have Clash Royale, and that game is still super popular. Brawl Stars is, I don't play it anymore, but my brother, he downloaded Brawl Stars when it first came out, and just recently during the holiday vacation, we were visiting family, and he was playing Brawl Stars the whole time. And I'm just like, you're still playing Brawl Stars? He's like, oh man, there's all these new characters, there's all this, this and that, they got new game modes. And he was actually educating me on it, and I'm the one with the YouTube channel who plays multiple games. But it was very interesting because he's one of those people that keeps playing these Supercell games, and he's a big Supercell fan because it keeps him engaged. They keep adding content, they keep doing something. I just feel like Supercell, they have that secret ingredient to their development and how they support their games. They're really becoming a household name when it comes to mobile developers. And we were talking about this in the pre-show, and it's almost started making me think who can we compare them to when it comes to PC console gaming, when it comes to developers and the type of products that they get out there and keep people engaged. We talked about Activision Blizzard being sort of one of those companies that kind of keeps people like that. People always are expecting the new Diablo to come out on PC. They're always expecting a new World of Warcraft expansion to come out. So if we wanted to compare, maybe we can say that's where they get it from. But Supercell is one of those companies where they keep their player base engaged, their community engaged. I never hear anything in the news about them making decisions that are super upsetting to people, how you hear about other developers. They're just on this track record, or they're just on this kind of trajectory where they are just blowing things out of the water. And you can hate them, you can love them, you can never want to play their games, but the fact of the matter is they're doing really good in the mobile landscape.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point about them not... I think some people like to complain, and hey, I've done this as well, by the way, so not pointing any fingers here. But I've complained sometimes about how, Supercell, Clash Royale, for example, you definitely get more advantages if you pay. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Like, if you want to compete again in the top, you have to grind for so many hours or pay. But I think what they do well, especially with their newer games, not so much like Clash of Clans. Like, Clash of Clans was very competitive, and you almost had to pay, right? Like, if you wanted to really, because otherwise your city was gonna, or your little camp was gonna get destroyed constantly, because you could get destroyed. Like, people could attack you when you were not playing, or when you were not there. So that is too competitive, and I didn't like the monetization model there. But in their newer games, Clash Royale, Brawl Stars, so on, you can play these games casually as well, and I think that is part of what makes them different, is that you can get into it, and if you want to become competitive, you won't end up spending thousands and thousands of dollars on the game. I mean, you can, for sure you can, but you don't have to. I mean, these days you can just buy their battle pass and you get so many advantages. Like, you get so much extra stuff that you actually progress quickly enough, and eventually you're gonna raise in the ranks. And yes, if you want to raise very quickly in your ranks, you can pay more and you can spend hundreds of dollars on it or thousands of dollars on it. But the point is, you don't have to, and also you don't have to raise in these or rise in ranks. You can just play the casual party game mode. So that's sort of my take on it. I think they have found a way to maintain a game that is great for casual players, but that also has even an esports scene to it. Like, Clash Royale has an esports scene to it, and Brawl Stars as well. So that is pretty impressive. Whereas if you look at something like Counter-Strike on PC, Counter-Strike is mostly competitive, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, when I say competitive, I just mean that you only play that game to definitely win, right? Like, you play to win, and you get kind of angry when you don't win.
And
whereas I don't feel that in Clash Royale.
Better. Yeah.
What it is, I don't know, but it's their secret sauce,
It's their secret sauce, and it probably has something to do with, too, they don't make sequels. There's no Clash of Clans 2, there's no Clash Royale 2, there's no Brawl Stars 2 in the works. Each game that they make is completely new, like a new iteration. Sure, they might use some of the same, like, characters, let's say, like Clash Royale does. It uses the characters from Clash of Clans, but each iteration of their game is a new sort of game mechanics to get people interested in, to get people hooked, and I think that also has something to do with their secret sauce as well. They're creating new products each time something drops, and then people get excited because, oh, it's Supercell, they're dropping another game, and it's something that's completely different from what they played in previous titles, and that probably also helps getting more people interested. Let's say you weren't a fan of Clash Royale and you despise Clash Royale, but you're a super duper fan of Brawl Stars, or let's say you dislike Brawl Stars, but you're a diehard Clash of Clanner. So it could have something to do with that, and that's what's growing their base as well, is the variety of games that they're releasing. Secret sauce exposed.
Yeah, secret sauce exposed. You heard it here first, guys. But Tiny, we have to stop up and just think for a sec here. Are we turning into Supercell stands, like Supercell fanboys? Is that what's happening here?
Supercell Shills.
I didn't see it going this way when we sort of outlined what we're gonna talk about in this episode. I didn't see myself sort of praising Supercell, but I guess I learned something about myself today.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it's weird too because I mean, I don't play Supercell games like Die Hard, like I was talking about my brother. He does. I just have to give credit where credit is due. I mean, they're doing something right, and they're going for it, and good for them. I kind of wish we would see more mobile game developers kind of go the route they're going, and then we'll get some awesome games out of
them.
it.
Yeah, Supercell is a great company apparently. Let's hope they keep making great games.
I agree.
I agree with you. It's just interesting when they release something new, and it's a new experience. So
yeah, and everyone gets excited about it, and we get excited, and then you fine folks are probably excited because this is getting towards the end of the podcast for you. Don't be too excited.
Glad to be done.
Yeah.
They're glad to be done with. It's like, finally, when are these guys shutting up?
Don't get too excited.
We're gonna go. I'm gonna go outside in the freezing cold again, just to sort of set myself straight and forget all this Supercell fanboyism.
Forget the Supercell, fanboyism, and then also I want you to pay respects to Kick Flight and maybe.
Yeah, I should bury them.
Yeah. Maybe just
find an old phone, install Kickflight on it, and I'm gonna do a time capsule type of thing.
Yes.
Like where you have. So you have it. So I'm gonna grab an old phone. I'm gonna install the game. I'm gonna record some videos, take some screenshots, turn it off, put it into some safe container, and dig it down in the ground. Except as I started off saying here, like it's minus way too many degrees here in Denmark right now, so the ground is frozen. But that's a good idea.
Do it. It's worth. And then make sure you put a tombstone there. R.I.P. Kick Flight.
Yeah.
Was survived by Nimble Thor.
50.
Write an obituary.
Yeah. 50 minutes into these podcasts, I mean, that's where the good ideas really start popping.
That's when, So for the future reference, everyone, always stay tuned till the end because we always have some great ideas. Nimble Thor's gonna time capsule an old phone.
What are you setting us up for here? Like now we have to come up with something great at the end of every episode.
Oops.
Tiny's word, cancel Tiny, not me, cancel Tiny if it comes to that. I didn't say this.
So with that, folks, I think that's a great place to end it. Be sure to let us know what you thought about this episode in the comments on YouTube and leave a rating on your favorite podcasting app. It really goes a long way in supporting the podcast. And if you don't know what to play now, you can always find lots of great recommendations on our individual YouTube channels by searching Nimble Thor or Tiny Little Games. Lastly,
or you could just go play the latest Supercell game. That's also an option.
You can also play the latest Supercell game as well. Lastly, our mobile gamer Discord.
Or you could go play Kickflight. Sorry, you could go play Kickflight until March 22nd. Get it now. Use code Nimble. Wait, okay, there's no code. Sorry.
Or
Rage
10 years.
Shadow Legends.
If you miss out, 10 years from now, you can go to Denmark and dig up Nimble Thor's time capsule, and you just might be able to play it then. It's going to be post-apocalyptic. It's going to be 100 years from now in post-apocalyptic times, and some survivors are going to find Kickflight, and it's going to help them survive. It's going to offer them food, water, all the necessities to survive the zombie apocalypse. Okay.
I agree. That's what Kickflight does for you.
That's what Kickflight does for you. But lastly, our mobile gamer Discord server is still running as strong as ever. So if you're looking for a place to just hang out and chat about mobile games, there's the place to go. So with all that outro stuff out of the way, we hope you guys have a great rest of your day and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Bye-bye.